Okay, so again, good afternoon to everyone. Hopefully you are not going to sleep as we will be having our way to the different parts of the world. Okay, so starting with the I would like to start the presentation with the great the two divisions of literature. Mm, because both the Philippine and the world lit would somehow cover this one. Then after which, what follows after this one would be the writers and their masterpieces. We are going to talk some of them before we are going to have the items which we have prepared for you this afternoon. So for literature is divided into two parts, two big parts, and these are prose and poetry. Okay, so that is why I have here prose and poetry, two divisions, and we are going to talk first with the prose. Prose are subdivided into two. You have the nonfiction and the fiction. Okay, nonfiction, these are the real events. What really happens are that what are written. While for the fiction, these are imagination of writers, creation of writers and the products of their imagination. Okay, though some of the fiction works, I mean, under the fiction, others may say, why is it that it's like what is happening now? I mean, what's happening now? Yes, because writers are what's this motivated, are driven on the kind of society that they have, on the kind of people that surrounds them, and the kind or the events that they have experienced during their time. Okay, so we would know through their works, we would know what kind of life do they have, what kind of um, yes, what kind of life do they have, what kind of society do they live, were they able to live at that time. Okay, starting with the nonfiction, the first type is autobiography. So we know autobiography is the story or the life of your own story. I mean, if I'm going to write about myself, then that's an example of an autobiography. Biography is the life of a person written by somebody else. Okay? So we have examples of autobiography here. One in one of our what's this Filipino writer Carlos Bulosan was um, known for writing his autobiography. And then we have the biography, and then diaries could also be. Diaries are, I mean, we started, I mean, when we were still children, we are used to of writing what is happening every day in our life. I do not know with you. There was once a time that we were asked by our teacher to write for a week or two what is happening in your life, and you are going to note it down. I mean, to write it through your diaries. And um there are diaries that becomes popular, just like the diary of Anne Frank. Through her diary, they were able to know, the world were able to know how they live during the war, how did they hide through their attic for how many days. And there was almost a time that they were the house were visited by the soldiers. So that's through the diary of Anne Frank. It um it tells the world knows how the survival of the people at that time during the war. So it's entitled Diary of a Young Girl. It records the experiences of her family living for 2 years. Imagine 2 years hiding from the Nazis in Amsterdam. So still, this was during the extermination of the Jews when Hitler was trying to exterminate the Jews through the Holocaust. Okay, and then okay, so that's one diaries. Another is an epistle. An epistle is a letter. Epistle is a literary work in a form of a letter or a series of letter. If it's a series of letter, it becomes other genres like the novel may use letters to tell stories, and they will be called as epistolary. Okay, so your letter could also be an example of nonfiction. Okay, what we have as an example here is English writer Samuel Richardson popularized the epistolary novel through his first novel, Pamela, which is entirely in the form of letters and journals. So that's how good they are for it as they write through that. And then the next one is, I know you are familiar with this because most of the time the teachers are asking you to write an essay or to write essays. But there are writers who become popular um, because of the essays that they have written. One of which is Francis Bacon and his collection of essays entitled Of Studies. Okay. Um, yeah, those are he is one of those that I've remembered who has that. We also have Ralph Waldo Emerson is an American philosopher and poet who wrote the essay Nature. Okay, he evolved the concept of transcendentalism, which taught that divinity or holiness extends throughout all nature and humanity. So Ralph Waldo Emerson has also written an essay entitled Nature. Okay, so those are nonfiction. What is written there are what's really happening. What documentaries could also be part of the nonfiction. I have read a novel of a documentary, the one that I have mentioned earlier, that is the title of the novel is Sultana. She is a princess, one of the princesses of Saudi Arabia. So she told there how is it being a princess in Saudi Arabia, how they live, what kind of life do they have, um, and then there are some limitations if you are a girl or a lady or a woman if you live in that place. And then her life was she narrates there with some of the stories of her housemaids, stories of her brother when that she knew, and her friend who was the friend was being married to, I mean, arranged marriage. The friend was 20 years old, but she was arranged to marry a 60-year-old man. And what she did is she turned on the oven and she entered the oven. So she made herself being baked in the oven. So that's how, because they don't like, it's an arranged marriage if you have it there in Saudi Arabia, and marriage there is ano sa ilaha, you can see your husband or your wife after a week-long celebration. So during the day that you will be married, and then for a week of celebration, you cannot see your husband or your wife. Okay. It's only your parents who will be arranging, only the parents will be arranging the marriage. Okay. You will only be thankful if your husband or your wife is beautiful, is educated, or the one the man or the woman of your dreams. But if not, it's really a nightmare, just like what she said. Okay, fiction. Under fiction, as what I have told you, this is the product of the imagination of a writer. So everything that is written there may it's only the product of his or her imagination. It could be true. There may be some situations that would be the same on that of that because again, the writer is living with, I mean, the people, there are people who surrounds him or her, and he is not alone in a society. He lives with a society, so he knows or she knows how would it be like or what kind of society she is into. So definitely the kind of works that he or she will be writing would be somehow like that. Okay. So under prose, we have the first one is a fable. We all know that fables are the characters are animals. Aesop is one of the writers who is best known of this genre in writing. So Aesop is a famous storyteller of fables in 16th century, and one of the very what's this? The stories associated with him is the story of the hare and the tortoise. Do you know that the hare stops? He thought that the tortoise um he cannot be defeated by the tortoise. He slipped for a moment, and there he realized later that the tortoise is already there at the finish line. Okay, and so there are many other stories like that. We also have in Philippine literature the jellyfish, the monkey and the jellyfish. Okay, have you heard that story? That's also the characters. Again, the fables are it's a story when the main characters are the animals. Next is we have fairy tales. Girls are fond of fairy tales when we were still young. We have Cinderella, Beauty and the Beauty. We have a Sleeping Beauty. We have who else? Cinderella lang man ang very familiar, no? Because of the lost glass slipper shoes. Okay, so fairy tales. Who known for this, right? One known writer for this is or author, Danish author is Hans Christian Andersen, and is famous for his fairy tales, which were published in 1835. And then he has the Snow Queen, the Ugly Duckling, and the Little Match Girl. Okay. Another is frame tale. What is this frame tale? Frame tale contains other tales within. So there's a story within a story. Okay. Um, Example of this is the Canterbury Tales. That is a story of the Canterbury Tales written by Geoffrey Chaucer during the Renaissance period, medieval period of the English literature. Um, that is a story of the pilgrims, okay? But according to the Canterbury Tales, it's each of the pilgrim is asked to tell a story about their life, okay? So one of those is the wife Bat's tale. One of the stories of the pilgrim, the wife Bat's tale. That's one story there. Okay, so frame tale, it's a story within a story. So Chaucer here is one of those um, writer for this type or this genre of writing fiction. Another one is Under the frame tale, one known for that is Francisco Boccaccio of Giovanni Boccaccio of he is an Italian writer and poet and humanist, and he wrote the Decameron. Okay, Decameron. It's Giovanni Boccaccio. And there's also another one. It's the Arabian Nights, of which Arabian Nights, it includes the story of Aladdin and Sinbad the Sailor. I think we are familiar with the Aladdin story. The genie, Aladdin, and who is that princess there? I forgot the princess name. Okay.
Jasmine.
Jasmine. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chutimo. And where were you this morning? Why you did not attend? Okay, next. Balik-balik si Miss Ybañez. Next, number 4. The next type is legend. So under legend, huh, who are the familiar, what are the stories? Mount Makiling is one of the legend stories that we have. Okay, legends are generally stories of origin. In particular, the most common of which are creation stories and origin of people, place, animal, or object. So we will not go somewhere else. Let's just have the legend of Maripipi. It's the story of Marie and Pepe, and they live in that island, and that's why the place is called Maripipi. And also we have the legend of Mount Panamaw. Okay, diba? We should know that because we live here. That according to them, according to stories, there is that beautiful princess or lady who lives in Mount Panamaw. Every time she has a chocolate factory, and there is that great boat that will anchor in somewhere in Kawayan, will bring the cacao the seeds for the dark chocolate, and to bring forth, okay, bring to and fro. And then they also have, and then they said, according to the story, every time there is a fiesta or festivities down below at the footbed of the mountain, this people will just shout, "We would like to borrow pots, fork, plates," and the next day that they will go back to the footbed of the mountain, they can see all the things that they needed for the celebration. So that's how good it was, no? Walay halin ang Rodson and J&F anang kalakihan na ang princess or anang a lady. Anyway, let's move on to parable. Parable are the parable is a simple story used to illustrate a moral or spiritual lesson. Okay, we have a lot of examples in the Bible, and we have there the parable of talents. That's one. The parable of the prodigal son. Diba? Okay, so these are examples of parables. Next is we have novels. No, I'll go to short story first. Short stories, these are, okay, stories or events that has only one or two settings. Normally, it has only one setting. You may ask, or before my students, if I ask them to read a short story, and then they will complain why this is called as a short story, where in fact there are 5 to 10 pages, and how do we call it as a short story? Okay, and short stories could even be longer because they're short stories because they only have one setting with a number of characters. unlike in the novel that there are several settings and there could have been more characters in the story. Okay, so that is why it is called as short story. Okay, where is it? Oh, why my screen is not moving? I wait. Okay, so under prose, before we go to the poetry, let's find first what are the elements of fiction. Okay, we have here, I have here 7. The first one is setting. The setting is the place and the time where it's the when and where the story happens. Pa. The place and the time. Next we have, of course, another important element in fiction are the characters. Okay, and characters can be dynamic or static, and characters also are identified as protagonist and villain. Protagonist or antagonist. Protagonist if you are the main character, or let's say bida. Ikaw ang bida sa storya. So that's protagonist. If you are the enemy or the villain, then you are the antagonist. Okay. How do we identify a character if he or she is dynamic or static? When we say dynamic, a character starts up being a good character. I think we have seen that one in many of the TV series, or even in um hmm to the stories the stepsisters in Cinderella. Did they become dynamic? Did they change from being a good? So, so that's first person point of view. So usually the pronouns that are being used here are I or we. Okay. So one or two of the characters are involved in the story. Second person point of view, this one really needs to have the creativity. But there are some who are really good at it. There is one example. Who wrote it? Oh, I forgot the writer. Um, how the second person is written. You imagine yourself that you are addressing the story. I mean, you are telling the story to your audience as if, I mean, you are addressing them right away as if they are in front of you. So you um, only few have make use of the second person point of view, and um, it may use the you pronoun, or it may not it may not it may use yeah, you second person pronoun, personal pronoun. And if it may not, then it's basta if it talks to you directly, to the readers, then that's the second person point of view. What is very common is the third person point of view. And third person point of view are divided into 3. There are subtypes for third person point of view. We have the objective, we have the limited, and we have the omniscient. What is third person point of view? Third person point of view is the narrator, the one narrating the story, not the narrator, the one narrating the story, the one telling the story is out of the story. I mean, he's just merely observing all the characters and the events, the unfolding of events in the story. But how can we identify whether it's objective, if it's limited, or it's omniscient? Objective is what the narrator, what the person narrating the story, what he or she sees What he or she observes, that's what he writes. Okay? What about limited? Third person limited. Third person limited, the one narrating the story can go into the minds and hearts, or the feeling and the thinking of few of the characters. Okay? He knows what they think. The one telling the story knows what he think, what the one of the characters thinks or feels. And lastly, omniscient, this is what they call as the godlike narrator, godlike point of view. Why? Because everything in the story, the unfolding of events, the characters, he knows everything. Parang he has the master plan of it. He knows what the character feels. He knows what each of the character feels. He knows where will they go. They know their plans. So that's what we meant there by omniscient. Again, for limited if only few characters are being penetrated. I mean, they know some of the plans of the characters. Objective, it's totally what you have seen, what the narrator have seen, what he has seen, what he has observed, that's what he writes. Not much, no feeling, not he cannot penetrate into the feeling and the thinking of the characters. That's how it's being identified distinctly. Okay. Normally, or for conventional plot, by the way, the plot is the series of events in the story. And the the conventional plot structure starts with an exposition, where this is the introduction of the characters and the description of the setting. And then you have complication. That's where problem comes in. And then crisis. That's the time that they begin to have some fight, or the problems are become greater. Then you are going to reach the peak, which is the climax of the story. And then after the climax, you have the denouement. That's the unfolding of, the uh, yes, after the climax, you have the denouement. That's the time that untying of the nuts. Now that, for example, now that you know that one of the characters is just an adopted child, so how did he come up that he is an adopted child? How that the parents may explain where did you come from and all. So that's part of the denouement. And then part of it also is the conclusion or the ending of the story. So most likely it looks like a pyramid. It's like a pyramid. You have the introduction or the exposition, you have the complication and the crisis, and then you have the climax, and then you go down the untying of the knot for the denouement, and then you have the conclusion or the ending. Okay, that's for the conventional plot. However, there are some writers and authors that are really good, that they started with a flashback. Okay, flashback. They may start with flashbacks, or they may start with a foreshadow. Okay, A Rose for Emily by William Faulkner is an example of the use of foreshadowing. He started the story with a funeral procession, and then he stops there, and then after which he narrates why there was a funeral procession. So Emily was introduced, who is she, and then until his father died. Okay, so there's already that one up to the end. So the end is the police were able to know and open her house, and they were able to see the body of Emily. Okay, next, theme. The theme is the moral or the lesson in the story, or it's the central idea. Okay, I will not say moral, the lesson, but it's more on what is the central idea of the story. Okay, So for example, let's go back to the hare and the tortoise. What is the central story of the what is the central idea of the story? So it means that we should not be we should not dilly-dally our work. We have to continue, we keep on going, or 'di ba, usually the story may also tell us on the part of the tortoise, slowly but surely the tortoise was able to reach the finish line, though he do it slowly, but he makes sure that he can really go to the finish line. So never quit. That's the theme there. Okay. Images. Images, these are um there are objects that will give you an image about the story. For example, a rose for Emily. What is, no, it's more on a symbol. So, um, hmm, images. Yes, this could be, these are um, pictures or objects that gives you some image of what is, will tell you the story, more about the story. Next is we have symbols. A rose for Emily, the rose there may symbolize for something else. If you are going to read, symbols will give meaning to the story. Um, for example, in the story A Rose for Emily, um, symbol what does the rose symbolize? Uh, if you are going to read the story, Emily doesn't have she doesn't have a friend. She when her father died, she was left all alone in the house, and then she fall in love with a Yankee, and but then she was left, and then she was alone in the house. I mean, she has only a gardener, and the gardener will just do the the trimming and the watering of and the cleaning of the garden of their garden. But Emily is some they they cannot see most of the time in the park. Emily cannot be seen in the park or in the church before she was there when her father was still alive. And they can only see Emily at the window until one day. Okay, so the it you can really you can see in the movie that in the story that Emily is detaching herself from the society. Okay, so and so are the people do not know more about Emily. But you know, when she died, everyone gives or everyone offers a rose to her in her funeral, in her coffin. So what does the rose there symbolize for Emily? Okay, so that's how um symbols work in stories. Okay, let's go to poetry. Poetry poetry is divided into three subparts. I mean, three types. We have lyric, narrative, and dramatic. Okay, under the lyric, we have elegy, ode, sonnet, haiku, limerick, pastoral, and epigram. Why is this called as lyric? Lyric, it's because it's associated with the lyre, with music. Okay, so poetry, I mean lyric poems are usually they are usually short and it expresses strong emotions. Okay, elegy is a type of lyric poetry, and elegy is A poem of serious reflection, the elegy has death at its main theme. Okay, so it's a poem for d- for dead person or attributed to a dead person. So that's usually the theme of elegy. It's on death. Okay, those who recite elegies mourn for someone who died and or reflect on death as such. So one example that we have for elegy in elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. Okay, so that could be one example. Another one is ode. Okay, ode from a Greek word meaning song. So the ode is a lyric poem within a dignified tone to idealize objects, qualities, or ideas. Idealize. So it is in general the poetry of praise or tribute. So example for this, Ode to the West Wind, we have that by Percy Bysshe Shelley. These are, and then we also have John Keats, who is also known for writing odes. Ode to a Nightingale, Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats. So these people, we also have Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Ode to France. Okay, so again, it could be a tribute or a praise to an object, to qualities, or to ideas, or even to persons. Okay, so those are that is for ode. Next we have for sonnet. Okay, sonnets are, there are two types of sonnets. I hope you remember the Petrarchan and the Elizabethan sonnet. Okay, the a sonnet is a poem consists of 14 lines and is generally classified, they are classified as Petrarchan and Elizabethan. What is the difference between Petrarchan and Elizabethan? Okay, for Petrarchan, it's composed of 8 lines, 8 with an octave rhyming lines. Octave means 8 lines, and sextet or 6 lines, typically rhyming as, okay, this is how the Petrarchan sonnet is being arranged. We have A B A B B A B B A. Okay, tama. 8. And then the 6 lines would be C D C D. It could be C D C D C D. So 6 C D C D C C D C D C D. So 6. Or it could be C D E C D E. It means to say that if we would say A B B A, the second and the third are in rhyme. The second lines and the third lines are in rhyme. The first and the fourth line are in rhymes. Okay, and then A, you go again for the fifth line, A, B, first fifth A, then B, B, A. So again, the fifth line and the eighth line are in rhyme, while the sixth and the seventh are in rhyme. What about for the Elizabethan sonnets? Elizabethan sonnets are arranged with 3 quartets. So what do we mean by 3 quartets? It means to say there are 3, 4 lines and 1 couplet. So still it's equal to 14 lines. So what is the arrangement? It would be A, B, A, B. So A, B, A, B, 4 lines. C, D, C, D. E, F, E, F, G, G. Okay? So A, B, A, B, meaning to say the first A, B, A. The first and the third lines are in rhyme. The second and the fourth are in rhyme. The fifth and the seventh are in rhyme. The sixth and the eighth are in rhyme. So A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F. The last two lines are what we call as the couplet. Two lines. Couplets, that's what we call as GG. I mean, we assigned letters for that as GG. Okay, so that's for sonnets. Now let's have haiku. Haiku is a traditional Japanese poem of 17 syllables. So earlier we're talking about lines, we're talking about stanzas, because a stanza can be formed of several lines. But this time we are going to talk about syllables. There are 17 syllables in a haiku and they are arranged as 5, 7, 5. Okay, so you are going to arrange that one 5, 7, 5 syllables, ha. It's not lines, it's not stanzas, it's only syllables. And the Japanese literature, I mean, Japanese writers are very known of this one, and they are very creative to be able to form what's this, a poem having that compressed, very compressed number of syllables. Matsubasho is known for this haiku, okay? And generally, they evoke images of natural world or scenes taken from daily life. That's the images that are taken from haiku. And then we have limerick. Limerick is a numerous 5-line poem with a rhyme scheme of A, A. So, dali lang, 5 lines. Lines na let's go back to lines. Lines na po siya. So, haiku is syllables, 17 syllables. Limerick has 5 lines. And then sometimes it's nonsensical. It generally deals with everyday affairs like marriage and love. Okay, Edward Lear popularized the form with his publication of a book of nonsense. So you can see there examples of limerick. The next one is pastoral. Pastoral coming from a Latin word linked to shepherding and animal breeding. And the pastoral is a literary work that features shepherds and portrays or evokes country life, typically in a romanticized or idealized form. And one example for this is the nymphs, no. The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, which is written by Christopher Marlowe. And there is a reply to that. The nymphs reply to the shepherd by Walter Raleigh. Okay, so you have there the Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe, and the nymphs, it is being responded by the nymphs, entitled of The Nymphs Reply in the To the Shepherd by Walter Raleigh. Don't you know that these two people have not ever met in their lives, as they say, according to stories. So it's just that their works were seen as a reply. I mean, Christopher Marlowe wrote The Passionate Shepherd of His Love on his own. And then there's also another one. I mean, Sir Walter Raleigh also wrote the Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd in a separate time, not in a I mean in a different place in his own, and it's only shown later when these two were already published. People were able to say, "Oh, this is a reply. The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd is a reply to the Passionate Shepherd to his love." Okay. The last one is epigram. What is an epigram? It is defined here as an epigram is a short and satirical poem with a witty or ingenuous ending. It is often used for remembrance in epitaphs or dedication. A famous epigrammist is the Roman marshal whose 15 books of epigrams reflect all facets of Roman life. So those are the different examples or the types of lyric poetry. Next is the next group is we have narrative poetry, and this is under the narrative poetry we have ballad, epic, and medieval romance. Okay, let's start with ballad. Ballad is defined as a poem or song narrating a story in short stanzas. By the way, narrative poetry, it's called as narrative poetry because there is a narration of it. Okay, there is narration of the emphasis is on the progression of action and settings of stories. Um, Sometimes these narrative poetry are sometimes identified as, I mean, mistakenly identified as stories. Okay, just like epics. Epics are in poetry form, they are in lines and stanzas, but epics are narrated to us as if they are in the prose. Okay, so but the original form of that is in lines and in stanzas. Okay, so we start with ballad. Ballad is a poem or song narrating a story in short stanzas. Traditional ballads are generally of unknown authorship since it has been passed orally from one generation to the next. That was the problem before, when we don't have the when we were not able when people, I mean humans, were not able to discover the printing press yet. Okay, so that is why they wrote some of their stories or their poems in stones. And what if the stones were gone? Okay, others are show I mean are dep- show I mean reflected in caves. Okay, so more modern ballads, however, imitate the traditional in terms of form and structure, but the former may be described as more literary. So examples are The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and La Belle Dame Sons by Mercy by John Keats. Okay. The next type of narrative poetry is epic. Epic is a long poem and typically one derived from ancient oral tradition. It narrates the deeds and adventures of legendary or heroic people such as gods, kings, princes, knights, and other people of high stature, and may also feature the past history of a nation. Okay, we have one example of here in the Philippines, we have Biag ni Lamang as an example for an epic, but we have not seen it. I mean, I do not know with you if you have read it as in lines or in stanzas. It's already in a story form, right? Hmm? Okay, and then another one is for epic is Beowulf. Beowulf is introduced to us not as in stories. I mean in sentences already, not in the lines, not in stanzas. So that's what we should be looking into. And or maybe because this again, since it's orally transferred, then maybe they don't have the lines really, the exact. Okay, the next one is medieval romances. Medieval romances are tales dealing with heroes of chivalry, like famous kings and knights, and these are popular during the 12th and 15th century. They also feature Christian morals and courtly love, and the stories of Charlemagne and King Arthur are the best, I mean, are examples of this genre. So if you are going to read Sir Thomas Malory's major work, La Morte d'Arthur, La Morte d'Arthur, which is a collection of the stories. My laptop is signaling for, yes, that's it. Low battery. Okay. So that is an example which the Les Morts d'Arthur by Sir Thomas Malory is a collection of the legends of King Arthur selected from French and other sources. But then again, if we are going to read them, they are already in sentence form. Hopefully we can read them in lines. The last one is we have dramatic poetry. Under dramatic poetry is we have, oh no, my connection is unstable. Comedy and tragedy. So what do we mean by comedy? Dramatic poetry, what makes it called as dramatic poetry? It differs from the other types of poetry in that it generally performed on stage. Okay, it's generally performed on stage. Therefore, it allows the audience to see stories unfold before them. Okay, and then you have the lights, the camera, and then the props and the music um, uh, go, goes with it. Okay, comedy is if the comedy is characterized by its humorous and satirical tone and its depiction of amusing people or events. And it is a kind of drama in which the characters ultimately triumph over adversity. So it's a happy ending. And that's what Filipinos love most. That everything that they are going to see, everything that they're going to watch will end up in a happy ending. Okay? Tragedy is the opposite of it. It may ends up with death. It may ends up with usually it's death or the loss of someone, and um, tragic events like or the person ends. I mean the poem ends or the play ends with um, the characters are suffering, the characters are hopeless, the characters are in pain. Okay, so it's there is a tragic end of the story or of the play. So those are the different types of poems, and then each of the type there are, I mean, different kinds, and each kind has its own and its subtypes. Okay, what are the elements of poetry? So what are the elements of, if we have the elements of fiction, what about poetry? So we have sound, that's one element of poetry. Sound or the rhyme, the sound that it creates through the rhyme that it produces. Okay, just like Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. You can, as you are going to read the lines, you can also feel the beat of the beat of the movement of the horse. Okay, that it's walking, that it's moving. Okay, so that's the beauty of poetry. Another one is its rhythm, the pattern that it creates. Okay, the pattern that it creates. By the way, I mean, for number one, sound or rhyme, for us, I mean, before, we do not consider a poem that it's a poem if it do not end, if it doesn't have a rhyme. But remember, this time there are already free verses that even if it's not in rhyme, but still it's a poem. There's still sound that it produces. Okay, number two is we have the rhythm. So rhythm is the pattern of the pattern that it creates within the lines, okay, or in the lines of the poem. We have here iamb, trochee, ducktail, or anapest. I hope the English majors here can still remember what does each of them mean, okay? For each line, if I do not know if you have heard, it says there iambic pentameter or iambic tetrameter. What do we mean by that? Okay, when we say meter, that's the count of the stressed and unstressed syllables in one line. So how many stressed and unstressed syllables that you have found in one line? Okay, so if there are 5, then it's pentameter. If there are 4, then it's tetrameter. If it's 6, then it's hexameter. Okay, I do not know if there is still heptameter. That's too much already. So most likely we have the pentameter. Okay, what do we mean by iamb? An iamb or iambic meter is identified as you have one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. Okay, remember in language, yesterday, and no, not yesterday, the other day, the suprasegmentals, do you remember that in the speech communication lessons that we have? Stress is one element in the suprasegmentals, and stress is identified if you are going to have your voice is higher, your pitch is long, the duration is longer, the pitch is higher, and the volume is louder. So if the volume of your voice is louder and your pitch is higher and the duration is longer, then the stress is being placed there. Okay, so remember, I am one unstressed followed by one stressed. Example, when we say begin, B is unstressed, gin is stressed. So unstressed, stressed, I am. That's I am. Next, what about for trochee? Trochee is the opposite of I am. So baliktad lang. You start with unstressed, you start with stressed, and then followed by unstressed. Trochee, that's trochee. Example, altar. So the al has the stress, tar is unstressed. So that is why you have there trochee. That is an example of a trochee. Stressed, unstressed. What about for ductile? Ductile has one stressed syllable followed by 2 unstressed syllables. So what is this? What example could we have on this? 1 unstressed, 1 stressed, and then 2 unstressed. Okay, 1 stressed and then 2 plus 2 unstressed. So we have here animal. A has the stress, animal has the unstressed. Okay, and then anapest is the opposite of it. You have 2 unstressed followed by 1 stressed syllable. Might in the end you would say, Ma'am, na-stress gyud ko sa imong gipanulti. Okay, so anapest or anapestic meter may have 2 unstressed followed by 1 stressed syllable. Example, souvenir. Souvenir. You would not say souvenir, di ba? It's not. So souvenir. The near has the stress. So 2 unstressed with 1 stressed syllable. Okay, again, Let's go back with the iamb. Iamb has one unstressed syllable followed by one stressed syllable. The number here is really very important because that's how are you going to count later and to identify what is the rhythmic pattern of, in a line of a certain poem. And then truqué, that's the opposite. You start with one stressed followed by unstressed. Dactyl is one stressed followed by two unstressed. Anapest is the opposite of dactyl, and that is two unstressed followed by one stressed. Okay, so if we have the rhythmic pattern, then we are going to have the line length. How long would be your poems? Or how long would be the lines and the stanzas. So it's being identified here as line length per meter. Next is we have compression. This is really one of the identified element of poetry. Poems are compressed. They are short, and the idea is already there despite of the limited number of words that it gives. Okay, so I am going to give some example, famous writers here of in Philippine literature and world literature. Okay, so let's start with, we have Paz Benitez Marquez. She wrote Dead Stars, and Dead Stars is considered as the model of perfection in character delineation, local color, plot, and message. Okay, that is how being Dead Stars is being described. Okay. The next one is we have Procopio Solidum. You know what? This is really the challenge in the literature. Hopefully, you are not going to experience the same thing as what I had before, when we were just asked of lines are just given. Lines are given of a certain poem, or poem, and then you are going to identify where or what poem did it come from. Can you imagine thousands and thousands of works, and there are hundreds or thousands of writers in the world, and then not everything that we have read. So that's the challenge there. So what I would like you to have, the technique that I have used there was, if I know what kind of literary piece is that, if it's a poem, then what kind of poem it is. Is it lyric, narrative, or dramatic? And then under that, if you can also identify its subtype, then it would be easier for you. It can work. Why? Just an example. For William Shakespeare's plays, it's around 40 or more than 40 plays that he has written, and yet there was one item, though it was in our major subject, there was one item that asked there, there was an item that asked there, from what play do these lines come from, or from what work of Shakespeare do this line come from? Oh my goodness, out of the 43, how many that you have read? If it's not read, there are already movie versions of those, then only few that we have identified, right? But if you know, since plays of Shakespeare are subdivided into comedy, tragedy, and melodrama, then it was easier for me since I was able to read what are those that under comedy, what are those that under tragedy, and what are those under melodrama. And so I just read through the lines, I read the lines, and then I tried to comprehend the line as to what is the mood or the feeling or the emotion that it gives. Would it leads to comedy? Would it leads to tragedy? That's how I answered those items. I would say those because it's more than one when it appears in the board exam. Okay, well, anyway, what I have given you here are just samples of their works, and they are known for these works. Okay, so we have Procopio Solidum. Procopio Solidum, he has his work Nevermind and other poems, and this is the first book of poem written, first book of poem in English written by a Filipino, where that was published during the period of imitation. I mean, this is the period of imitation of as identified in the Philippine literature. Okay, so first book of poems in English, written in English. First book. My connection.
Ma'am Ellie.
Nimbaws na pod sa ako kaganina sa inyo. Hala. Where are
Continue ra ang recording, ma'am?
continue na siya. Recording ra gyapon siya.
Okay.
Pero it's in you. Nalagi sa imo ang record. I do not know. Nabas ako. Basta mo naman sa imuhang kuan. Anyway, I will just send kung unsay naa. Huy naasa, where are the students now?
They're still here.
They're still here. It's only me who is lost for a while.
2, 4, 6.
Diyos ko.
6 participants.
Host disabled participant screen sharing. I cannot share my screen. Oh.
I think I became the host.
Yes. You are the host now. Okay, you are. Okay.
Ano, wait.
Naa sa imo, ikaw ang host.
So you're the one who's still recording. Then I will make you the host now. Okay, try screen sharing, ma'am.
O, di ana. Haruy talaga. Mo ba ni? Is this the screen? Okay. Technology really is. It's easy, but if it doesn't work, goodbye. Kamutan.
Problem.
Hi, naku. Okay. Anyway, so we have here. Let's continue. We have also here Zoilo M. Galang. His work is A Child of Sorrow. This is the first novel in English written by a Filipino. So remember that some of the works before, or most of the works before, were written in our dialects, but only few were being recovered now and preserved because some of them are again written in I mean on the stones and on the bamboos and these are gone. Okay. Next we have Jose Garcia Villa, who used the pen name Doviglion. He excelled as a critic, short story writer, and poet, and one of his popular short story is Footnote to Youth. And you better read that one, and you will realize whether to get married early or not. But do not be like me. nga ning lapas na sa time. Okay, anyway, footnote to youth, it's two young people who are very in love with each other. Si Tina and who is the partner? And then they, do you remember that, Chutimo? Footnote to youth? Tina and
Dodong ang guy.
Yeah, this another the name of the guy. Basta they get married at very early age and tapos nagsunod-sunod ilang anak. And then they realized nga if only though they were happy because both of them really work for the relationship and for their family, but in a way there was that feeling of what if I did not get married, I continued studying, what kind of life do I have? That was the reflection of one of the characters there, especially for the for Tina. She's able when she noticed that there are I mean he has already wrinkled uh, hands, wrinkled face, and it seems that she's always tired every day. So footnote to youth, you better read that one, okay? And so Jose Garcia Villa excelled as a critic, short story writer, so that's footnote to youth, the story, and a poet. He has this collection of poems, How Come I'm Here, and he is the one who propagate this art for art's sake. That art is consumed for arts. It's not used for used for action or to rebel. So you write stories or you write poems. That's art, creating art, and it's being consumed to appreciate, for appreciation. So art for art's sake, he is known for that. Okay. Next, we have Marcelo de Gracia Concepcion, and he wrote this Azucena, the first book of Filipino verse to be printed in America. So there was really a struggle before as to how they could print, how they could publish their works. They may have their works, but it's not published or it's not printed. It's not in printed form. So Azucena is the first book of Filipino verse to be printed in America. And then we have Carlos Quirino, first Filipino biographer to write in English. And he has The Great Malayan. This is his work, The Great Malayan. We also have Ivy Maliari. Good for the English majors because you can have this one in the books of your students when you have your practice teaching. I think you have heard names, if you are teaching grade 7, you have heard the names of Ivy Maliare. I do not know if Jose Garcia Villa's footnote to youth is already used. Hopefully it will be because there are a lot of kids right now or teenagers who married at an early age. At least they would know how does it feel like. Okay, so Ivy Maliari showed his mastery of the art of irony, in the art of irony as well as of the English language, and his work is entitled The Birth of Discontent. The Birth of Discontent. Next, we have Salvador P. Lopez. Salvador P. Lopez is known for his prize-winning collection of essay, and it's The Literature and Society. He's known for that. And then we have Francisco P. Icasiano, Horizons from the Nipahat. So still, this is for essay. They are writers of essays. And then we have Wilfredo Maria Guerrero. So we are talking about poets, and then short story writers, and then the writers of essays, and then now we have uh, playwrights or writers of plays. We have here Wilfredo Maria Guerrero, who is known to be most prolific dramatist and has produced 13 plays. And then we have other playwrights. We have Agosto Catanhal, The Oil Lamp. Yes, I've heard. I mean, I've read one of his work of Agosto Catanhal in the grade 7 book. And then we have Vidal A. Tan, the husband of Mrs. Cruz. And we have Severino Montano, The Land of Our Fathers. So these are all plays. Next, we have Carlos P. Romulo. Carlos P. Romulo is the first Filipino writer and journalist to win international recognition, and this is the Pulitzer Prize. Okay, it's one of the prestigious prize or award. So one of the popular works that he has are the following. You have I Saw the Fall of the Philippines, I See the Philippines, and what's Mother America. I See the Philippines Rise and Mother America. So those are their those are the works of Carlos P. Romulo. Next we have Carlos Bulusan. Carlos Bulusan's works are also found in books. Okay, Carlos Bulusan, he has written his book of poems called Voice of Bataan. This is his book of poems, Voice of Bataan. Immediately this is written, I mean, this is published, put out his book immediately after the outbreak of World War II. So Voice of Bataan. We know how, what's this? Memorable or historic Bataan is in terms of World War II. We have the Death March right there. Next is he has also the Voice of Bataan is followed by The Laughter of My Father. This is a collection of humorous stories. And one of those stories is My Father Goes to Court. It's one. And you would know that one. You would know that you can read that one, that story. And he has also written his autobiography entitled America is in the Heart. Okay, so these are the popular works of the masterpieces of Carlos Bulusan. Okay, next we have Stevan Haveliana. Stevan Haveliana is known for his work Without Seeing the Dawn. Okay, Without Seeing the Dawn, it's a war novel comparable to Rizal's masterpiece. So Stevan Haveliana, Without Seeing the Dawn. Next is we have NVM Gonzalez. Oh my God, what happened to my Gonzalez? Gonzalez. It's Gonzalez. NVM Gonzalez. He published 7 Hills Away in 1947. 7 Hills Away. Okay. Next is we have Francisco Arciliana. Okay. Francisco Arciliana. Where is he? Where? Okay. Yes, 1940s. Francisco Arciliana's work is Divide by Two. Arcilia joined the ranks of the finest writers with his work Divide by Two. By showing his artistic ingenuity in point of structure, emotional impact, subtle manipulation of symbols, and the powerful rhythm of his language. That is where he is known of. Next is we have Bienvenido Santos. And Bienvenido Santos is known for writing You Lovely People. This is his first book of short stories about Filipino exiles in America. So this is the feeling of the Filipinos who are in America, how they are, how they feel. They feel like being exiled. Where is okay? Next, we have Nick Joaquin, and Nick Joaquin has used he has used this pen name Quijano de Manila um, when he wrote his works, and then he is also he is the known for writing the work entitled "The Woman Who Had Two Navels." Just imagine if you have that. It's a novel entitled "The Woman Who Has Two Navels." So what does it depicts? It showed a new way. Nick Joaquin's novel, in the novel form, Nick Joaquin's The Woman Who Had Two Navels, showed a new way of presenting the subject matter, employing rich, multi-layered meanings and incorporating a sense of history and tradition. Okay, that's for Nick Joaquin. Next, we have Francisco Chunel Jose, or known to be F. Chunel. Okay, F. Chunel started his Rosales saga with The Pretenders. He has that, The Pretenders. This is an indictment against the modern ilustrados and social injustice. Okay, The Pretenders talks about that. And then we have Kirima Pulutan Tuvera. Kirima Pulutan Tuvera, she's a writer who turned to be a publisher. And she showcased her artistic sensibility and social conscience and portrayed the yearnings and frustrations of a Flauberian heroine in the work that she has entitled The Hand of the Enemy. This is a novel that is naturalistic in its pessimism, but romantic in its style and presentation. So these are some of the works of the Filipino writers, their masterpieces, and their way of writing, okay? Their style of writing. Next, for the world literature writers, this may not be complete. Definitely, it's not complete because there are a lot of names. There are more of names other than this one. But I only have this as a sample to you, and maybe you have read or heard some of their stories. Okay, we have Confucius, and he is known for his Analects, the Analects. One of which that says there, a superior man, if he commits mistake, will not blame others. An inferior man, when he commits mistake, a superior man, when he commits mistake, he blames himself. But an inferior man, when he commits mistake, blame others. So I cannot forget that one because I've asked that to my students when I was still teaching in the basic education. And then my question was to ask them which of the two would you like to be? To be a superior man or inferior man? And most of definitely people would really want to be the superior man, but the definition of Confucius in his analects of how a superior man be like is somewhat difficult to follow. Just imagine when you commit a mistake, you're going to blame yourself. Because most of the people, when they commit mistake, they blame other people, right? Okay, next. Right, Chuti mo? Mga saba, no. Kung naay sayo. Okay, anyway. The next one is we have Sige lang, normal man kuno na siya. And let's just with that. The next one is we have Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy. Um, uh, Dante Alighieri is um, an English writer. Is he an English writer? And this one is one of his what's this work, the Divine Comedy. Next is we have Geoffrey Chaucer. I've already mentioned you that Geoffrey Chaucer is um, known to have the Canterbury Tales. And the Canterbury Tales is an example of a story within a story, a frame story. Okay. Next is we have here Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. This is an epic. It's a poetic journey of a man struggling to reconcile himself to a bitter political exile through the triumph of love. So it takes a reader to journey that symbolically begins in a despairing world not yet redeemed by Christ's crucifixion and ends with poet's return as a man, renewed in hope, having beheld the beatific vision of divine grace. So that's the Divine Comedy. Canterbury Tales, there are a lot of stories of the Canterbury Tales. You have the Knight's Tale, you have the Wife Bat's Tale in the Canterbury Tales, because it was believed that there were 30 or 23 pilgrims. However, ang sabot nila is one story going to the place, to the pilgrimage, then another story going back home. But then in the story, they were only able to collect around 40. So there were some who were not able to go back to their place because they were not able to tell the story. That was the belief. Okay, next is we have, it's not Francisco, but rather it's Giovanni Boccaccio, who wrote the Decameron. Boccaccio's delighted readers and inspired writers for half a millennium. It is in the 14th century medieval allegory told as a frame story encompassing 100 short prose tales or novel by 10 young people, 3 women and 7 women who are fleeing from plague-ridden Florence to a villa in the countryside for 2 weeks. And the word Decameron means 10 days. We have the word deca means 10. Rather than telling the stories directly, Boccaccio creates a fictional background or frame of the book, and one famous story is the tale of the Falcon. Do you know what's the tale of the Falcon? Do you know that? Yeah. She's in love to a certain woman, and then the woman was once the Falcon, and then the woman said nga, okay, she keeps inviting the person to come over to the house. And then until one day, sige mo anak ko, but um, having the thought, having in mind nga, pangayoon tag yun akong Falcon. So since the guest is special, the Falcon is the one that is being cooked for food for the was it a dinner that they have. So mo to siya, that is a sad story nga. I want the girl or the woman said, I want the Falcon, I want your Falcon. Unsay pagkaada sa Falcon nga, you already eat it. Gikaon na nila ang Falcon nung nabusog na sila, dinha pa siya ni sulti. Okay, next is we have Miguel de Cervantes Saavedra. It's Saavedra. It's the Adventures of Don Quixote. Okay. This is one of the famous works from the Renaissance, and Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, the knight and the squire, ride from one ludicrous adventure to another in pursuit of the knight's dreams of glory. And the central concern of the novel is relationship between reality and fantasy. So that's the gist of the Adventures of Don Quixote. And then we have William Shakespeare. He is the star of the Elizabethan period. And I've only written here Romeo and Juliet, but it is only one of the plays of what's this, Shakespeare, that he has written. He has produced a number of sonnets. He has produced a number of plays. Hamlet is one, and sonnet 29 is one. Okay, so one of the best in Elizabethan period, which is the golden age of the golden era of English literature. And then we have Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon, I've mentioned this one. Francis Bacon is known of his essays entitled Of Studies. Okay. He said, studies serve for delight, for ornament, and for ability. For delight, for ornament, and for ability. Okay, so think of it. Next, we have Jonathan Swift, and Jonathan Swift is known for his Gulliver's Travel work and A Modest Proposal. A Modest Proposal is a satirical, it's a satire, and Jonathan Swift is known for the master of writing irony and satire. Okay, next we have Guy de Maupassant. I have written here The Necklace. I think we have read this one, The Necklace. An ambitious Madame Louisel wants to borrow the necklace of a friend. He got lost of the necklace. She used the necklace to one of the parties she attended. He got lost of the necklace. He got lost of the necklace, and she repaid it with a real one without asking her friend if it was real or fake, knowing that her friend is knowing that it was only borrowed from her friend niya. Tapos napobre sila. She lives in a shanty house, and then her friend was asking, what happened to you, why you are like that? And then she said, because of your necklace, I lost it and I buy another one in the pawn shop. And there she found out that the necklace is not real. It's not real diamonds niya. Yung gibayluan o real diamonds niya. Napurdoy sila mag-asawa. How sad. Okay, so being materialistic is not good, really. That's the story there. Next is we have Henrik Ibsen. Henrik Ibsen is known for his masterpiece, A Doll's House. And Henrik Ibsen is a Norwegian writer, was the creator of a modern realistic prose drama, and he was also one of the first writers to make drama a vehicle for social comment. Okay, he wrote A Doll's House as one of this is one of his works. Next, we have Edgar Allan Poe, and Edgar Allan Poe is noted not only for being we have Leo Tolstoy pa there. Okay, Leo Tolstoy was regarded as the greatest 19th century Russian writer. He is remembered most for his novels War and Peace, Anna Karenina, and for his short stories God Sees the Truth But Waits, Where Love Is, There God is Also, and How Much Land Does a Man Need? God Sees the Truth But Waits is really one of the stories that that is known to be written by Leo Tolstoy. A merchant who travels, and then he has someone with him in his room who killed one of his roommate, and then he was identified nga siya ang nagpatay. He got imprisoned for how many years? He lost his his family did not visit him for a long time. And then until such that the real person who killed the other merchant whom he slept in the same room is the one that he lives I mean, in the prison cell, that they are together in the prison cell already at that time. And then one day, that man was trying to escape, and then it was, I forgot this name, the main character found out that he's trying to escape, and then nasabtan. The escape plan was was known to the warden, and then they were able to find. It was only on that event that he knows that that was the man who truly kills the merchant that he slept with. He slept together in that same room. Kaning ning sulti naman to nga. So before, I was not imprisoned for the crime that I really did. And this time nga, ingon ani lang akong nabuhat, I was I was already imprisoned. Kadto gani nga na ako gipatay, it was a murder. But then I was not the one who suffered for it. Tapos iyan ang ginarrate, and it's narrated to the one who is paying for it. So on the day, the sad thing lang in the story is that on the day of his release, he died. Okay, so that's the sad part of the story. On the day of his freedom, of his release in the cell, he died. Okay, anyways, it's always there. The lesson, I mean, the theme is even seen in the title itself. God sees the truth but waits. Okay, we have Edgar Allan Poe, The Cask of Amontillado. It's the story about two individuals. And it's morbid. It's all about death, and you can feel it's what's this kind of the description in the story, how he piled up each of the blocks to cover his
Montessor.
Oh yes, Fortunato and Montesor, no?
Yes, ma'am.
But ang the good thing of the story there is when the piling of the blocks, when he tries to cover Fortunato or Montesor in that place of the house, diba? So gasping for breath, diba? Nga time he could hear the gasping of the breath of his Fortunato. So parang the there is a clear description, a vivid description of how he plans for it. Okay. Next is we have Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore. And he is known for his work. Rabindranath Tagore showed a deep awareness of the poverty and other hardships faced by so many of his people, and he was also a vocal supporter of human and personal freedom. He was best known for his collection of poems called Gitanjali, or Song Offerings. Rabindranath Tagore. We have Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. And so I traveled, I choose the less traveled road. Stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. That's also one of his known work. And then he has this Mending the Wall, or Mending Wall. That's also another a poem that he is popular of. And then we have Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway, he's best known of his work, The Old Man and the Sea. Okay, Hemingway's writings emphasize the delusionment of American expatriates, among whom he lived in Paris during the post-war period. And he was part of the so-called lost generation writers who became preoccupied with the macabre, suffering, death, and loss of values. He wrote about people's struggles to maintain a sense of dignity while living in a seemingly hostile and confusing world. And this novel The Old Man and the Sea is one that he is known of. And then we have Anton Chekhov. Anton Chekhov is considered one of the greatest writers of the short story, and he received a medical degree. He received a medical degree at the University of Moscow in 1884, but he soon neglected his medical practice in order to write. So he really loves to write. His numerous stories and plays give him a commanding position in literary Russia. In Russia, he gave a poignant illumination such as human experiences of loneliness, grief, hunger, and misery, and he's known for his story, The Lady with the Dog. And then we have James Joyce. James Joyce is known for his works, Ulysses and Araby. Okay, he is an Irish author, and he also have, aside from these novels, Ulysses and Araby, Ulysses, he also have his popular stories like Araby and poem collection, short story collection, double-liners, and he has this story, the Araby. He's known for his way of that stream of consciousness in writing. Then we have William Faulkner, is an American short story writer, and he is known for this short story, A Rose for Emily. Okay, he is regarded as the most innovative American novelist of his time, and experimented with narrative chronology, explored multiple points of view, and delved deeply into the minds of his characters. Just like in the story A Rose for Emily. You better read that one. There is foreshadowing on that. And then we have Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a Colombian writer. He is a Colombian writer and one of the most innovative writers of the time. His style combines realistic storytelling with elements of folklore and fantasy, and he is known for his work 100 Years of Solitude. So imagine that, if you have that, 100 Years of Solitude. Another is, we have a Chilean poet, Pablo Neruda. He is a Chilean poet. Pablo Neruda is known for his famous poems. One of his famous poems is The United Fruit Corporation. The United Fruit Corporation. Okay, next is we have Wole Soyinka. He is a Nigerian novelist. And a Nigerian novelist, poet, and playwright. One that I like of his work is this, The Telephone Conversation. You are able to see racism or racial discrimination here. Okay. The pricing, this is part of his of that telephone conversation poem. The price seemed reasonable, location indifferent. The landlady swore she lived off premises. Nothing remained but self-confession. Madame, I warned, I hate a wasted journey. I am African. Silence. Silence transmission of pressurized good breeding. Voice. When it came, lipstick coated, long gold ruled, cigarette holder pipe. Caught I was fully. How dark? I had not misheard. Are you light or very dark? So you can see there in the conversation, in the telephone conversation, you are being asked, how dark? Are you light or very dark? So skin color is really a struggle for them. Next, we have Pramoedja Anantatuer, an Indonesian writer. who wrote novels, short stories, essays, and histories of his homeland and his people. And one of his work that he is known of is the Inim. It is the story, a short story, and it's all about traditions of Indonesia. As I remember it right, he is also the writer of the circumcision short story, and you are going to see there how circumcision is important to them. Like there is really it's not only a ritual, but there are festivities that will happen after. Okay, you will receive, if you are a male and then you are being circumcised, you are being scheduled to be circumcised, and you are being placed in a certain hut na you are going to meet the person who will circumcise you. And then what's this kanang, when the ritual is done, or when the circumcision is done, you will receive gifts from your families and from your friends. Oh, what about here in the Philippines? It's just a normal thing to be done to boys. But for them, there is really a ritual, and there are festivities that will happen after. Okay, the last one, a Malaysian writer, a Malaysian poet, dramatist, teacher, and linguist. And he published A Question of Dory and Everything's Arranged. These are published in 22 Malaysian stories in 1968 that brought her immediate recognition and probably urged her to cultivate a literary career alongside her professional teaching and research duties. So, in a way, I think we have touched almost all the continents in the world. We have Asia, we have Africa, we have America, we have Europe. Okay, I think we have covered them all. So let's now have a try to some of the items that we have here. Okay, what would be the answer? Let's start with the Philippine literature. To what literary genre does the story of Maria Makiling belong? Is it a myth, a short story, a poem, or a legend? What is
Legend.
It's a legend, okay? We know that it talks about the origin of the place. Okay, next. Epistolary is a novel told through the medium of, I have mentioned that earlier. Letters, messages, calls, or chats. Hala ka, social na ba? Chats. Okay, messages. But I think later on in the future, with this new technology that we have, I think they are going to, writers will create stories out from the chats and the calls and the messages that they are going to receive. Gives us an idea anyways. Okay, so the correct answer is letter A. Next. Once I passed through a populous, okay, you are asked what this passage is an example of. Once I passed through a populous city, imprinting my brain for future use with its shows, architecture, customs, and traditions, yet now all of that, what is this? All of that city I remember only a woman I casually met who detained me for love of me. This is a passage, this passage is an example of free verse, blank verse, metered poetry, or prose. Letter. What do you think is the correct answer? Hala. Are you with me? Letter.
Prose.
It's a prose because it's of
Essay.
sentences and paragraphs, not on lines and stanzas, and we connote free verse, blank verse, and metered poetry to poetry. So it's obvious that the correct answer is letter D. Okay, number 4. Only the heart can see rightly. This is what I have told you. Good if the line that they're going to give the lines that they're going to give are popular or known to us, or we have read them. What if we don't? So see, this really happens, I think, until now, because this is an example of a PRC question. Only the heart can see rightly. Where do we get this one? This is a statement lifted from what novel? The Heart, The Prince, The Little Prince, and The Right One. What is your answer? Grabe, if you cannot answer this one.
Guess lang.
Oh yes, guess? Sige.
The heart.
Hala, pansumbagon tagyod mo. It's The Little Prince. Diba katuningon siya, what is invisible to the eye is felt in the heart. So this is one, The Little Prince. Katubitaw nag-travel siya to, and then he has that rose with him nga iyang gibisbisan. Okay, so this is what I've told you. Ngano di ay naamoy nabasakan nga story nga entitled The Heart? Or you guess because it says there only the heart can see rightly. Okay, so I thought you can guess I mean you know the answer because it's only The Little Prince, which is a known title of a novel. Okay, that is why I have given you list kaganina, because even if you do not know that the story behind, tapos makita ninyo, wala man ni sa gihatag sa amo, or wa man ni nako nabatian, wa man ni nako nabasakan, wala man ko nakabalo ani nga mga titles, so this is not kanira ang akong nabalaan, so okay, that's the answer. Sometimes it helps, okay? Sometimes it helps. So the answer there is The Little Prince. Next. Which of the following is Carlos Bulusan's celebrated autobiography? I think this was mentioned earlier. Falling Leaves, The Laughter of My Father, American is in the Heart, Footnote to Youth. Letter C. Because Footnote to Youth, again, that is Jose Garcia Villa's works. Okay. I also got this one, number 6. She is known for the love sonnets she wrote, though I have not mentioned this. The correct answer here is definitely it's not Paz Marquez Benitez because she wrote a novel. Edith Tiempo is writing stories. So the correct answer here is Ophelia Di Malanta. Number 7. What was the first book published in the Philippines? Pasyong Mahal, Doktrina Kristiyana, Del Superior Gobierno, Marlaan at Josaphat. Do you know what's the answer? Letter B. Okay, correct. Doctrina Cristiana. Next, we have number 8. Jose Garcia Villa experimented on the use of the form. Okay, letter A. His poems followed a centipede or a bird. His poems followed a structure. His poems were of a romantic tones. His poems disregarded substance. What do you think is the correct answer? Even if, let's say, you haven't read his poems, but having the word experimented, what do you think would be the answer? What kind of poem that he has produced or he has written?
Kanang romantic tones. Charot.
Romantic tones, magud na siya. Diba? For lyric koan, diba? For lyric, oh yes, letter A. The correct answer is letter A. Because you have there experimented. That should have been your line. If you haven't read, you haven't come across with Jose Garcia Villa's work, but given that the idea of experimented, among the options here, which of the following that tells you that he experiments? Diba? It's only his poems follow a centipede or a bird. It's difficult kaya to arrange your lines as such. It's really an experiment. Okay, this is known. Who said the Filipino is worth dying for? Sharo di mo kabalo. Letter. The Filipino is worth dying for? Letter.
D.
Hala ka. Masuko si Chris Aquino sa imo ka. Letter C. Diba? Filipino is worth dying for. Okay. Number 10. Who is the author of Without Seeing the Dawn? I've mentioned this one. Can you still remember? Without Seeing the Dawn is a war novel comparable to Rizal's works.
Stevan
Javillana. Okay, very good. Stevan Javillana. Next. Which next? Okay. This one, Jose Garcia's story. This is the one that I've told you that tackles the problems and disadvantages of marrying at an early age. Midsummer, Footnote to Youth, My Father Goes to Court, How My Brother Leon Brought Home a Wife. Midsummer was written by, I think, Manuel Argelia. I think so. Where is my copy? But footnote, Jose Garcia's work is Footnote to Youth. My Father Goes to Court, that's Carlos Bulusan's story. And then How My Brother Leon Brought Home a Wife is the work of Manuel Argelia. Kadtong artika is tanan ang iyahang sister-in-law to be from the city gidangad to sa iyahang brother to nagribkan. Okay, nagribkan. And they ride on that kuan kadtong sa Carabao kanang ano tawag ba ana niya? Yaning agi sila na the short in the dili sa shortcut ngadto pagid sila sa long road. Okay, so that's how it's described creatively and vividly. Okay, the novel was inspired by the answer. Letter B. Footnote to Youth. Yes, letter B.
Yes.
That's Jose Garcia Villa's work. My Father Goes to Court. It's My Father Goes to Court is Carlos Bulusan. Where are you? Sakto lagi. Midsummer is written by Manuel Argelia. Okay, next, Gomborza. Noli Mitangere, El Filibusterismo, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and Les Miserables.
Noli Mitangere.
Is it the Noli Mitangere? Execution of the martyr priest Gomborza. It's the other, the next one, which is the El Filibusterismo. Okay. Yes. Next we have Which of the following is a great work of art of Fernando Amorsolo? If matapos na ang COVID, if you have the time, or if you will go to Manila, you visit the museum. It's really nice, and you are going to learn a lot about about the Philippines. And it's there. Fernando Amorsolo's works are one of those that are displayed. Musikang Bumbong, Planting Rice, Spolarium, First Mass. Which of, what do you think? My internet is unstable. A, B, C, or D? The correct answer is
B siguro, ma'am.
Okay, correct. Letter B. Because Spolarium is Juan Luna. And Fernando Morsolo, you know, is just making use of pencils. Pencil lang ang iyang gamit, and dito nakabutang ang iyang.
So napi uban diha.
Okay. Next is we have number 14. What do you call a play with songs and dances? And it is adopted from the Spaniards. Moro Moro, Zarzuela, Passion, or Alay? What do you think is the answer? Nang hatag na ilagay yung tagload, aron mo tubag sila.
Si ma'am.
Muro, ma'am.
Hala, why load? Wrong answers. Moro Moro, that is.
B na lang, ma'am. B.
Wa na.
Wag yun.
Muna lang may
Passion, ma'am.
nakabilin.
Passion.
Uy, Passion, it's not.
Di na siya passion. Sa kuan mo na,
It's
Lord.
not.
Siguro na.
Passion is for kanang sa Holy Week, di ba? Are you going to have dances and songs in the Holy Week? Di ba yan? The Passion is for the suffering Christ.
Alay.
Zarzuela, that's the Zarzuela, and we copied that one, or we adopted that one from the Spaniards. Moro Moro, that is still dances and songs, but it's a fight between the Moro and the Christians. Muna gitawag nga Moro Moro. I think the Panamaw Dance Company has performed that one in one of their performances in the university. Next, who is considered as the most outstanding among Filipino playwrights in English? Hala, I have mentioned this one. Can you still remember? Kaganina ako ni mention basig na nga tugmo or nag-snacks. Carlos P. Romulo, was it Carlos P. Romulo, who is known for his playwrights in English? Carlos P. Romulo, Severino Montano, Leon Maria Guerrero, or Wilfredo Maria Guerrero?
A mong familiar.
Oy, I have mentioned the three except for Leon. I've mentioned Carlos P. Romulo.
Si Severino.
The first.
Severino Reyes.
Dili mao. Hey, ma'am, duha na. Ay, si Leon, what man mention mo? Si Wilfredo siya. Wilfredo Maria Guerrero is known to be outstanding in playwrights in English. Di ba I've mentioned 13 plays ang iyang gikuan together with Arturo Catanhal. Kinsa pa to yung mga kauban? Yeah, it's here. Augusto Catanhal, Vidal Tan, these are the people that he is with. But who excelled among them is Wilfredo Maria Guerrero. Hala kamo. This is only a remembering question. It's in the low level. Tapos you're not able to remember. Okay. Next is we have the Filipino writer is known for his local color in his work. A, B, C, or D? Letter A. Okay, you have letter A, Manuel Argilia. Okay, next. Let's move to, okay. Here, there are already answers, so you are not going to worry. The pen name of Samuel Clemens is Mark Twain. Okay, we have here Mark Twain. It's not Robert Drone. Ano Robert Droning? Okay, is there a Robert Droning? And then we have George Eliot, Edgar Allan Poe. And then we have Mark Twain is using the pen name of Samuel Clemens is Mark Twain. So Samuel Clemens is using the pen name Mark Twain. Who won this one? We have mentioned this writer. Who won the Nobel Prize collection Gitanjali, which is about faith, hope, and beauty of the world? Masho Basho is, again, I've mentioned this. He is a Japanese poet. He's known for the haikus. Okay, Samuel Clemens, no, it's not. Mark Twain is a American English writer. Then Jose Rizal, of course, you know Jose Rizal. So the correct answer is Rabindranath Tagore. Next, Chaucer. Chaucer's collection of stories in verse, showing a storyteller's giving a vivid picture of English society. Okay, the correct answer is the Canterbury Tales. This one, who delivers the Gettysburg Address to give tribute to the soldiers of Civil War? We have, okay, the answer is Abraham Lincoln. It's already there. Barack Obama, it's very recent. Hillary Clinton is not a president. George Washington is a president, but it's in the recent times. Okay, this one, just to be a collection of fables which was used to educate Indian princes into becoming wise kings. Okay, so the correct answer here is the Pancha Tantra. A portion of the Pancha Tantra, I remember, English majors, if you are assigned to grade 8, I think this is one of those that are featured. I mean, one of the stories that are named. Okay, 101,000 Nights, that's the story of, this is a frame story. Mahabharata is not. Okay. Which among the following narrative uses talking animals to teach moral lessons? So we have here Aesop's Fables. Number 7. Victor Hugo's masterpiece about the adventures of an ex-convict named Jean Valjean and a prostitute named Fantine and her daughter Cosette. So it's the Les Miserables.
Les Miserables.
Okay, it's during the Industrial Revolution. Next, who among the following is known as an Indian Shakespeare? So if William Shakespeare is in England or an English writer, so what about for India? Who is the equivalent of him? So we have Kalidasa. Okay, remember that. He's known for fables and other stories that are set in the jungles of British India. His most famous collection is the Jungle Book, which is about Mowgli and the wolves. So it's Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde. And then, oh, here it is. The one that we have talked about earlier, Martinito. Do you remember? It is Edgar Allan Poe's short story about revenge to his friend and murder his friend between friends named Fortunato and Montisor. Nawala na si Chutimo. Where are you, Chutimo? So this is the story that we have talked about. It's the Cask of Amontillado. There are still other stories that Edgar Allan Poe has written. It's the Black Cat, and still it talks about murder and revenge, and almost the same kana bitang you are being covered slowly with the cement and the blocks. So that's it. That's how Edgar Allan Poe write his poems. I mean his stories. He also wrote he also write na lost di ay si si Chutimo. Chutimo, you are lost di ay no kaganina. This is what we have mentioned earlier. Fortunato and Montisor. Mark is there. Bakit ngayon ka lang, Mark? Next. Nibolingid is a Russian folk song, Latin myth, medieval Germanic epic, or a Chinese legend? I have already identified the answer there, so it's an epic. It's an equivalent epic to Beowulf. Next, we have Kanisha. Which of the following terms describe the subject matter, style, tone, and attitude of a literature of ancient Greece and Rome? We call it as classicism, ancient Greeks and Rome. So these are the Iliad and the Odyssey. What else? Trojan War, so they belong there. And then the gods and the goddesses, so it's all there in that classicism part. Romanticism, it's already on the latter part, and it's not about talks about the ancient Greece and Rome. So the correct answer is classicism. This one, it is a description on a gravestone or a short poem in memory of a deceased person is called maxim, epitaph, motto, or couplet. So the correct answer here is maxim. Ano? Epitaph. Ano ba yan? Epitaph. Couplet, that's the term that is used for the last two lines for the Elizabethan sonnet. Maxim is a saying. So the epitaph there is a short word, or we call it as the epigram. Okay. Read the stanza and answer the item that follows. Actually, I really want to have examples as like this, that to post questions. Okay. Read the stanza and answer the item that follows. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. Every line of the poem consists of 8 bits represented by 8 syllables. What do we call that one? The one that I've mentioned to you, it's rhythm. Rhyme, if you have, okay, what are the words that are in rhyme here? We have tears and years, then shade and afraid, but it's not the question. The one that is being asked is about the 8 beats. Okay. George Edward Shaw said, "You see things that are and you ask why, but I dream things that never were and ask why not." Such lines speak of Curiosity. The answer is curiosity. And as much as I really want to give examples as to identify what is the point of view used in the story, but then the stories are long, or excerpts of the stories are long. So it could be, what about this one? In Philippine literature, I may read and you listen carefully. The old people had ordered that the dancing should stop at 10 o'clock, but it was almost midnight before the carriages came lining up to the front door, the servants running to and fro with torches to light departing guests, while the girls who were staying were promptly headed upstairs in bedroom. This is taken from Mayday Eve by Nick Joaquin. The question is, the story literary period is used as context of the story is, what Philippine literary period is used as context of the story? American, Japanese, Spanish, or martial law? Where are my students now? Old people ordered that the dancing should stop at 10 o'clock, but it was almost midnight before the carriages were lining up to the front door and servants running to and fro with torches to light departing guests. When do you think this happened? American period, Japanese occupation, Spanish period, or martial law? Where are you, students? The answer is Spanish. Why do you think it's Spanish, Martinito? Why do you think it's Spanish period, Martinito? Huh? Na-feel. You should have the reason why you have chosen it. Okay, notice that you said carriages there, so it's not cars. So it means to say it's still in the older times. And then it says there torches, diba? So you use torches, and in what period did Filipinos use torches? It was during the Spanish period. Okay, what about this one? What idea, the idea expressed in the box below, belongs to what school of thought? A poem is not a thought but a grace. A poem has no meaning but loveliness. Letter A, escapist art. Letter B, modern art. Letter C, art with social consciousness. Or letter D, art for art's sake. A poem is not a thought but a grace. A poem has no meaning but loveliness. I've mentioned that one. Martinito. Where are the others? Escapist art, modern art. Letter D, art for art's sake. By Jose Garcia Villa.
Choppy ka, ma'am. Choppy.
Okay. Machapi lagi, basta dili ka answer. Joke. Bitaw, the correct answer is arts for art's sake. Arts for art's sake. Di ba? Remember kay Jose Garcia Villa, arts for art's sake. A poem is a thought but a grace. He wants to say that a poem is a work of art. I mean, an art is a work of art. It's a creation made through arts, and it can be consumed for appreciation, not for any other action. Okay, last one. Last two. Is my signal still clear? This one.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am. Yes.
bantay
Ma'am.
ha. Bantay
Yes, ma'am.
karon ha, kung makatubag ba? Bantay lang.
Pas-pas, ma'am.
Question: which figure of speech is shown in the line below, taken from Erwin Castillo's Tomorrow is a Downhill Place? The trees along the way were ruffling their wet feathers, tensing their green wings In anticipation of the coming flight. A. Personification. B. Hyperbole. C. Simile. D. Metaphor.
Pardon na.
Okay.
Nagawa.
The trees along the way were ruffling their wet feathers, tensing their green wings in anticipation of the coming flight. A. Personification. B. Hyperbole. C. Simile. D. Metaphor.
Personification.
Very good. Why? Because?
Kaya gihimuag action ang mga object.
Very
Charot.
good. Okay, correct. Trees cannot, wet feathers tensing their green wings. Okay, trees don't. They are living things, but they do not act like humans. Okay, last one. Kanisha be, kay baba mo, if whether this is a setting, characterization, conflict, or dialogue. Ambo was almost as tall as his older brother, and he had a stout husky legs. He ate the banana without peeling it. Patay. You foolish boy, remove the skin, Baldo said. I will not, Ambo said. It's not your banana. He took a big bite and swallowed it with exaggerated relish. But the skin is tart. It tasted bad. You are not eating it, Ambo said, and the rest of the banana vanished into his mouth. The question is it a setting, a characterization, or a dialogue?
Dialogue.
Why it's a dialogue?
Okay, there is an exchange of conversation. Joke lang.
Mm-hmm. Are you sure? Is it a dialogue?
Or characterization.
Okay, it's characterization. Why? It's because at the beginning of this excerpt, it says there, Ambo was almost as tall as his older brother. There was a description. There was a description about Ambo and how Ambo eat the banana. Okay, how he eats the banana would give you the description of the kind of character that he is. See? So, shall we end the day? You have others, pero katagas man siya, oy. Let's call it a day. Hopefully, you have learned something from me. Kung wala,
Yes,
pwede mo
ma'am.
mag-rally. Iuhaw na ko.
Open ang mic.
Mark, nganong karon na ka ni abot? Where have you been? Nawala ng phone.
Miss Ellie.
Yes.
Recorded pa ba
Do
yan?
I have to?
Miss Ellie.
Do I have to transfer? Ako ba
Ma'am
ang
Ellie?
host? Am I the host?
Yes, ma'am. Just keep the hosting role.
Until the end. Do I keep the
Yes,
hosting
ma'am.
until
And
the
then,
end?
yes, ma'am. Then, just do the honor na lang po to in converting the video. Then
Okay,
send me na lang
anyways.
through email.
Oo.
Sir Mark Armazan?
Mark, parang you are only here when it starts and when it ends.
Pakibigay mo na sa akin yung hosting skills.
Okay. Ma'am Ellie, please
Bakit?
transfer the host.
Sandali lang, ma'am. Sandali.
Pwede naman tayong mag-end. Hala, nang asa naman yung
Not yet, ma'am.
estudyante? How many students are...
Siyempre, may drama ka diyot.
Wow!
Okay, Webviewees, do not leave yet.
Okay po, sir.
we will be asking Sir Ryan to provide the reviewees to those who are attending, to provide loads, especially who comes early. Kinsa to kaganina, sir? Ato tong ningsud baka siya karon no balik. I will give. Ako na lang sa sunod.
Siguro to.
Sa sunod. You change your name. Okay, whoever kinsa yung next nga reviewer.
Sir Jeffrey Aransado, ma'am.
Okay.
Next week, that will be next week.
Okay, sige. Inaw na ako. Oh, no, kay kamo man, you will know, di ba? Si Sir Rene and you will know who comes first because you are in control of the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, so sige, I will give 100 nga load to those who will come.
Yes.
Wow, bongga.
Ganina, ma'am, ganina or next week?
Wow.
Next week, eh, karon raman ko nakakuan. Next week na, karon
Karon
makaandam
pa na.
sila.
Karon panahon na the next week ang effectivity.
Oh. Karon ang pag-announce niya, next week, ay, pwede po karon. Kinsa po ka kanina, sir? Pero siya baka to ang siya, I mean, in the afternoon, basig nawa siya.
Wala siya sa afternoon, no?
Ay,
Dapat na siya
ko'y
kutub
hatagan,
hapon, ma'am, no?
So, dapat the mechanic should be the person is present in the morning and first come to the first
attend.
one to come. Oo. Tapos
The last one to leave.
struggle ra ba gyud na ang morning. So, ikaw na lang. Sir Mark, ikaw naman nag-inom-inom din, ha?
Dapat after me.
Sige na,
Pwede
gutom na po.
ang
Students,
host.
sana there's an evaluation po so that I would know. Are you giving them evaluation sheets?
The evaluation committee are still preparing the evaluation sheet.
Okay.
Sir
But I don't
Cabas.
know if what are my things to improve in my presentation.
Ang posting?
Ma'am, i-improve ang internet connection.
Ang buraray na improvement. I cannot control that one. I can only control myself. Kapila na ako giaway ang globe. Please lang.
Ma'am Ellie.
Yes.
Ma'am, alaya nag-transfer ang hosting to Mark, Sir Mark.
Abi na akong na-transfer na.
Wala pa, ma'am.
Wait, time pa kayo nangita na.
Ma'am, na ko i-share.
Nana po ko, nera Mark.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. Why believe ma?
Pwede na po ko kay Bao. Gunsaon pag-transfer.
Katong na-blow na dot, ma'am.
I-click ang name ni
Yeah,
Sir Mark, then more options.
Una na diri ko.
Sa name ni
Stop
Sir
the
Mark,
video.
then ay murag blue diha, then ay
Yes, there is. Ay, dara make the host. Ako
make
kabasa.
host.
Okay. Sorry, pasensya na sa gore. Hindi to gore.
Then after Sir Mark, you will return the hosting to Miss Ellie.
So that I can record it still.
You can convert still
And
you can
then convert it.
the,
Okay, sige.
yes, ma'am.
Wow, bongga.
Liki ka, ma'am.
Bongga yung pabuto ni Mark. Oy.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Elizabeth Ybañez, for your comprehensive lecture in the General Education English. We surely learned a lot in your discussion. So rest assured that these learnings will be a big help and use to our reviewees in taking the licensure examination. To convey our great appreciation to Miss Elizabeth Ybañez, may I humbly present this certificate of recognition. The citation reads, Republic of the Philippines, Biliran Province State University, School of Teacher Education, Naval Biliran, awards this certificate of recognition to Miss Elizabeth C. Ybañez, Faculty of School of Teacher Education, for her exemplary performance and meritorious service rendered as lecturer during the Freestead Webview online item analysis on the BLEP parallel questions on July 22 to 23, 2020 via Zoom. Given this 24th day of July 2020 at Biliran Province State University, Naval Biliran Province. Signed, Ryan PR Pon, Dean, School of Teacher Education, Innovation, and Victor C. Cañeso Jr., University President. Thank you very much, Ma'am Elizabeth. Same appreciation to our first lecture. Nakasisiguro kami na napakalaking tulong ng iyong naibahagi sa ating mga Webviewees para ipakita ang aming taus-pusong pasasalamat sa ating unang tagapagsalita. Nais po naming ibahagi ang sertipiko ng pagkilala. Hayaan niyo po akong basahin ang nakatala sa sertipiko.
Nosebleed.
Kalaw. Ay.
Nosebleed.
Republic of the Philippines, Biliran Province State University, School of Teaching, exemplary performance and meritorious as lecturer during the Freestead BLEP Review online item analysis on the BLEP questions on via Zoom. Province State University, Naval Biliran, Philippines. Signed, Ryan PR Pon, Dean, School of Teaching for Academics, Research, and of course, Victor C. Cañeso Jr., University President 3. Thank you very much, Sir Jason Ybañez. And as of the moment,
Thank you very much.
may I call in Sir Jason Ybañez, sir?
Okay, everyone, as for the announcements, no, our lecture on general education mathematics will start next week, Tuesday. That would be July 28th, together with Sir Jeffrey Aransado. We would also like to request everyone, especially to those who will watch this review on the closed group. If you have successfully watched the video, please comment down your name and then stating that you have finished watching the review so that we can monitor your attendance. I think that would be all. Thank you very much and see you next week and on our succeeding reviews. Hopefully will stay with us. Sir Mark?
Okay na, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay na, sir?
Yes, sir.
Sige. So, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us this week. And I hope na mas marami pa tayong matutunan next week sa mathematics na GE Mathematics. So, thank you very much. See you next meeting. Bye.
Bye.
Ma'am Elizabeth, thank you.
Have a nice
Sir Mark,
weekend,
please transfer the
everyone.
hosting to Miss Ellie so that
Sir Jason?
please transfer the hosting to Miss Ellie so that she can
transfer
convert.
Na kasi sir?
No, to Miss Elizabeth.
To me.
Sa Elizabeth.
So she can convert the video and send me the.
Saan ko po i-ano, ma'am?
Hala, di siya. There's a question here sa chat. Sir, how about kami po na always present?
Okay. Okay na po yung attendance.
They may not watch the video, no? To those lang who are not with us during this live meeting. I mean, the Zoom meeting. Diba? Ansa ba? Tama ba akong interpretation?
Or they comment there, or they could comment their names stating that they have participated in the Zoom meeting. We will just check it.
Are they going to comment? Asa sila
They could
mag-comment?
just comment down. Under the video, ma'am. Sa comment box doon sa video sa
Ah.
closed group.
So if they have attended the Zoom meeting, they will also comment that they have attended the Zoom meeting. Unsa, tama ba? Kaya may question diri. Sir, how about po kami na always present?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Oo, mag-comment na lang po doon sa video sa closed group so that isa na lang yung titingnan namin doon sa attendance since doon din naman i-check yung hindi naka-attend sa Zoom meeting. So mag-comment na sila doon. Member na din naman sila ng Zoom, ng closed group sa Facebook.
Okay.
Then we will also pala post the link for next week's Zoom webinar later. Okay, more questions?
Okay po, thank you. Okay. Thank you so much of your patience and your for listening.
Chatimo, thank you very much and everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Happy weekend.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
and
you to
sir.
those who joined this week's webview.